What's going on, guys? Stephen here with you, S&E's Garage. If you watched our last video, you will have seen that we are in the shop with our 07 Camry here. And you will have seen that we diagnosed our front end shimmy to be excessive rotor runout and some improperly serviced caliper slides that caused them to bind up. Whenever you service your brakes, you should never use an oil-based lubricant. It causes these dust boots and things like that to soften and swell. So we are going to be go ahead and replacing them along with the pads and rotors. Here we have a slide pin service kit, part number PBK085. These are a power stop part. We have our front rotors, Rabistos. These are coated. Here's the part number here, 980470FZN. And then we have our Rabistos brake pads. These are ceramic pads. Looking for a part number here for you. It's going to be MGD1222CH. This video is going to be good for your 2007 all the way to 2017 Camrys. They really haven't changed much in those years. It's mainly just body changes, things like that. The brakes have been the same. So, like I said, this should work for you. We already went ahead and took the side apart in our last video. That was how we diagnosed what our issue was. Just for the purpose of this video, I went ahead and slapped this side back together. So you'll see we do have the car jacked up. We have a jack under the front subframe, and then we have some jack stands underneath. So what we're going to do, we're going to set you up on the tripod, and we're going to break these two 14mm bolts loose here with this 14mm open-ended wrench. Get this caliper off, take the pads out, get the bracket off, and then we have to service these slide pins. Now we are going to need a caliper compressor. I use this Lang, part number 277. This will also be in the video description below, and it is in my Amazon affiliate store. Anytime I do brakes on the channel, you'll see this tool being used. So let's get you on the tripod and start pulling this apart. Like I said, we already had this apart in a previous video, so I did not snug these down. At this point, you would be breaking these two 14mm bolts loose with your wrench. We're just going to go ahead and work them off by hand. Like so. We're just going to move our caliper here out of the way, put our hardware and our bolts in a pile. We're going to pull these return springs here off and set them aside because we are not sure if our new brake pads are going to come with them. I always like to set these aside, reuse them if I have to. Okay, we're going to pull our pads out, and at this point you're going to want to inspect your slide pins, because if they do not move freely, it's going to be a lot easier for you to remove them here on the car than once you get this out of the way. So I'm just going to get a 17mm wrench here, and we're going to work this slide pin free. It's not super seized, but it's seized enough to where I can't get it out by hand. And this is the easiest way I found to do this. Sometimes you need some heat to put on it, but you got to watch out when you heat them up because they'll shoot out like a missile. So I'm just going to put this wrench on here. You'll see I'm just working it back and forth. And while I'm working it, I'll try to pull at the same time. And then after a while, you can get a wrench in here like this, and you just kind of use the wrench to walk it out the rest of the way. And you'll see this rubber bushing here has actually swelled from the grease that was used to lube these calipers, and that's what caused them to seize, along with this getting brittle and soft, again from using the improper lubricant. So with that being said, we're going to service these, but now that I got it freed, we're going to go ahead. I believe these are 17mm here. Let's double check. Yep. So we're going to get our 17mm impact gun, and zip these off, and get this out of the way. Alright. Caliper brackets off. We're going to set that aside. We're going to bring this up over to our toolbox so we can service it. Now we're just going to smack that rotor off. Shouldn't take much. Or it's going to make a complete liar out of me. There it goes. Okay. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is inspect your hub. You'll see here, ours is pretty rusty, so we're going to go ahead and clean that up. That can be a cause of some run out with your new rotors. You want them to sit flush to that hub. So let's go ahead and clean that hub off. Alright, so we're going to take some Scotch-Brite here, or some emery cloth, and we're just going to get in here, you know, try to clean this up. If you don't want to use emery cloth, you can use, let me grab it real quick, a wire brush, clean it up with that as well. It doesn't really matter how you do it, we're just going to clean that up. Let me go grab a wire brush, might be a little faster. So again, we're going to come in here, try to work all the angles here. You don't need a whole lot of pressure. You're just getting in there as best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can clean up a lot of this rust, it's going to help you have a nice mating surface for your new rotor. So let me finish this off camera. We'll get our new rotor on. Now, I do want everybody to keep in mind the main reason that we are replacing these brakes is because we had excessive rotor run out, and this could have been part of the reason for that, was the rust on here. So that's why we kind of wanted to clean this up real nice, because we want to give these rotors their best chance to fix our problem. We know for a fact, like I said, if you watched our last video, there was absolutely excessive run out there, but this is just going to go the extra mile and make sure that these rotors sit flush on this hub. So let's go ahead, get the rotor, slide it on, and then we're going to go over on the workbench and service our calipers, our caliper brackets, I should say. Now, this is absolutely not a necessary step here, what I'm going to do. Again, this is our personal car. We live here in the Rust Belt, and this is actually the car that I commute in. So it gets a lot of salt, road dirt, and road grime on it, and I want to protect it. So we are going to use a little bit of anti-seize here, and we're just going to coat this hub. That way, if I still own it, which I probably will, the next time it needs brakes, we won't have to beat these rotors off like we just did earlier in the video. So again, we're just going the extra mile here, try to keep this car happy. So now I'm just going to wipe my hands off because I don't want to get anti-seize all over my new rotor. And we're going to slide our nice new coated rotor over the hub. And then what I like to do is just grab a lug nut while I'm putting the rest of the brakes together. I'll just run a lug nut down to kind of help hold the rotor in place so it's not fighting me. So let's go ahead, get over to the toolbox. We're going to service that caliper bracket. So I just off camera went ahead and opened up my new hardware kit. So I wanted to make sure that these brakes came with hardware before I went ahead and started pulling all this stuff off. But the first thing that I want to do here is service my slide pins. So like I showed you before, this rubber bushing here is actually swollen to the point of it not allowing the pins to move freely. So we're just going to take our hook tool here. We're going to get underneath this. Boom! We're going to pop it off like that. Now we're going to take our emery cloth that we just had that vanished on me. Here it is. And we're going to clean this slide pin off really nice. You'll see I'm just kind of going back and forth, in and out, around. And we really want to put a nice clean pin back in here. So here we have our nice clean slide pin. We're going to go ahead, go here in our hardware kit or our caliper boot pin rebuild kit, and we're going to get one of our bushings out of here. Okay, and we are going to slide this bushing on like so, and this is how it should fit. It should fit nice and tight like that. It should not in any way, shape, or form be loose. Let me get the rest of this out there because I didn't see. There it is. The other one is hiding here in one of these boots. So let's make sure we keep that aside for the other caliper. So now what I like to do here, now you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. I take a drill bit and I actually don't connect it to the drill. I stick a drill bit in there and I spin it. And what that's going to do is take all the dirt from the back in the flutes of the drill bit and pull it out towards us. So let me grab that drill bit and I'll show you exactly how I do it. So I grabbed two different sizes here. We have a 7/16 and a 29/64. And like I said, I just go in here like so, and I'll kind of just twist it around. And you'll see that the dirt and the chunks of crap that are in there are actually going to stick to the flutes of the drill bit. So now we'll just go one size bigger, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to spin it around, pull it out, and again you'll see there's some dirt and grime on that drill bit. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take some of our Wagner silicone brake parts lubricant, and we're going to just put a little bead around this part of the rubber seal, and we're going to spin it and work it in like so. So now that is in. We're going to take some of our, again, Wagner silicone brake parts lube, and we're going to put it onto this slide pin, and then we're going to rotate and push like so while we put it in. And then you'll see here we have a nice free floating caliper slide. You'll see it moves nicely. So now we're going to do the same thing on this guy here. Pull this out. We're not reusing that. Rip that out. Again, Scotch-Brite. Clean this real nice. You want to get these nice and clean. And then we are going to use our drill bit method. You'll see that's nice and clean. We're going to take our drill bits, start small, get the crud out. Now see, this size is too big for that one, so we're just going to use this one here. Okay, same thing. We're going to grab our rubber boot here. We'll lube it up. All right. Slide it in. You'll know when it's in all the way. There you go, just like that. Put some of our rubber or our brake parts lubricant on here. Again, rotate it while we're going in. That basically distributes the lube. And now we have two nice, free, floating slide pins. So this caliper is going to be ready to go. All we really need to do now is pull our hardware here out, our old hardware. Just kind of remember how it's oriented. These face on the outside. We're going to pull these off. Sometimes they come apart easier. And then wire brush. And we're going to clean this up real nice. Try not to breathe this dust in. Alright, flip it around. Done. Alright, so now we can go ahead and take our new brake pad hardware here. Remember, like I said, these things face out. So we're just going to slide them in like so. Put it over here. Okay, so see, this is the wrong one. Nope. This one will go here. Okay. All I need to do now is find one for this side in our hardware bag. I believe I just did. This is bent. You gotta straighten this out. It came bent. Use a pair of pliers. Bend it back into place. This little tang here is a little bent, so we're just gonna straighten that out. And now this should it's always got to be a difficult one. Boom. Just have to push the back in. There we go. So now we have all of our hardware in. We can move over to the car and bolt this on. Now I do just want to really quickly mention that a lot of shops and even dealerships, if they find that these slide pins here are seized, the ones that we just basically rebuilt, the way we cleaned them and replaced the bushings on them, they will sell you a whole caliper. So your caliper itself can be totally fine. If they find these pins are seized, they'll usually want to replace the caliper just because it's faster and they make more money on it. The part's more money. So just by servicing these yourself and servicing your calipers and, you know, making sure that they're nice and free and making them move freely, if they don't, you're going to save yourself a ton of money. Not only you're not paying labor, but you're not replacing the whole caliper. Instead of replacing a $200 caliper, you're replacing a $5, $10 bushing kit. So it's worth doing these yourself. You know, it's not rocket science. I'm a certified mechanic. I know what I'm doing, but you don't need to be a mechanic to replace brakes. It's super simple. So we're going to go ahead We're gonna run this down. Now, I don't have my compressor charged right now. I just have enough air in it to kind of do what I'm doing here. So I am just gonna make sure that these bolts here are tight. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and get our pads. All right, guys, so here we have 2 new brake pads. We have our return springs that they did come with. And then these pads come with 4 squealers. So you're gonna install a set of squealers on the inboard and the outboard pads. Now all the squealers do is warn you when your pads are low, so you know to replace them. So what you wanna do is orient your pad the way it's gonna fit in here, and then you're gonna wanna install the squealer on the leading edge of the rotor. Now when I say the leading edge, I mean whichever part of this pad is gonna contact the rotor first, with the rotor spinning forward, that's where you install your squealer. So you're just gonna clip it in like this, you'll hear it clip in, and now we are just going to go ahead and slide these bad boys into place. Like so. We're gonna go ahead and do the back one now. Alright guys, so off camera I was actually having an issue with the aftermarket, the hardware that these pads came with. They were not allowing the pads to slide freely in the bracket, and that's a problem because that's what can cause your brakes to overheat and warp, and that is actually why, like I said before, we are doing these. So I went ahead off camera, I took the aftermarket hardware that we installed on this caliper back off, and I cleaned and reinstalled the original hardware that was on the caliper. And now you can see these pads will move nice and freely. So if you have that issue, just clean up your OEM stuff or whatever was on there prior and reuse that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get our caliper compressor. We're going to compress this caliper, and then we're going to install our little return springs on these pads and slide the caliper on. So we're going to be using our Lang caliper compressor. This is the same one you've seen me use in all of my other brake videos if you've seen any of them. So what I like about this is it's ratcheting, so it makes this job super easy. Now these pads that were on here weren't really worn, so this caliper does not really need much compressing. So we're just going to ratchet this until it is compressed in all the way. Like so. Okay. I'm just going to spin this back in a little bit. We're going to take our new return hardware. We're going to slide them into the pads. Like so. And now when you're doing this, you're going to want to hold these pads because these springs are going to want to make the pads shoot back out. And that's, realistically, that's what they're designed to do, because you don't want any drag. It's going to hurt fuel mileage and it's going to damage the brakes. So now that we got them compressed and those springs on, we're going to slide our caliper on. We're going to take our 14mm bolts here. Okay, we're going to thread them in. And we're going to go snug them up. Actually, the wrench is still right here. So we're going to snug these up. Okay. Now, we're going to, off camera, take care of the other side. Now I can take my lug nut off because I have the caliper holding the rotor on. And I'm literally going to do the same exact thing we did on this side over there. I am, like I said, I'm just going to clean up the factory hardware. So I'm not going to remove that hardware from that caliper. I'm just going to clean them up and slap the pads in it. Alright guys, we got both sides done. Now a big part of what can cause rotors to warp is actually the way you tighten your lug nuts. So it is very important that when you tighten your lug nuts, you go in a star pattern that's going to load the top hat of the rotor up evenly. And it is very important that you torque them to specifications, because if you over torque your wheels, you're going to be putting that deflection directly into the top hat of the rotor, and it's going to cause the rotor to spin untrue, and it will cause issues. So the spec on these is like 78, 79 foot-pounds, something like that. I torque them to 80 just because it's a nice even number. So what I do is I use my impact gun on a very low setting, and I just run my wheels on. And then once I get it down on the ground, I torque it. So let's get the wheels on, let's get the lug nuts in. I'll show you exactly what we're doing here. Let me just set you up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Put our lug nuts right here for now. Alright, so these wheels are aluminum, so they're nice and light. I'm just going to go ahead, get them into place. And we're going to start our lug nuts by hand so that we know that they are not cross-threaded. 1. 2. 3. 4. And 5. So like I said, we're going to grab our impact gun. Right now the compressor's only got about 70 pounds of air in it, and we're going to turn this setting all the way down, and we're going to grab our 21mm socket, and literally all this is for is to get the wheel on the car. That's it. Going to need a little more than that. Alright, so now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then we're going to lower the car down toward the wheels. Alright guys, we're back down on the ground. Now we do have one locking lug nut here, so we're going to torque that one first. Just go over it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And like you saw, we went in a star pattern. So let's go ahead and do that on the other side as well. Again, same thing. Find our locking lug. Do that one first just because it's easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let's go ahead, pump our brake pedal, take her for a ride. All right guys, so we just finished up our brakes. We just torqued down our wheels. We're gonna go ahead, pump our brake pedal, get some of that brake fluid into those front calipers, fill them up, start the car. 199,450. We are closing in on 200,000 miles in this baby. So let's go ahead, take her for a ride, check these brakes out. Here's the beast, TRD. I'd have over 50,000 miles on that car if it wasn't for this one. It's more than worth keeping this car going. go ahead and let this car pass. We're off. We're going to listen for any abnormal brake noises or hardware rubbing or anything of the sort. We're going to go ahead and apply our brakes, make sure it slows down. It does. Now, when this vibration was very noticeable was highway speeds. So I'm talking, 75, 80 miles an hour, you hit the brakes, you'd feel the steering wheel and the pedal vibrate all the way down to about 45, 50, and then it would smooth out. But it would get worse as you heated the brakes up. So as you saw in our last video, we did verify that we had some excessive run out in those rotors. And so far, so good. Alright guys, we're going to call this fixed. So, if this video helped you replace the front brakes in your 2007 to 2017 Toyota Camry, please like, share, and subscribe. See you on the next one.